Ladies and gentlemen, can you please take your seats?
Hi.
There's plenty of seats up the front. Welcome. I'm Karen, and I'm your MC for this evening. So before we get into anything, just a couple of housekeeping items, please. Please make sure at the end of the night that you've returned your cups and put them in the dishwasher. That would be nice. If in the event of an emergency we have to exit, there's an exit here, there's one down the back, there's one down the front. Please congregate on the footpath out the front. Don't push, don't run, she'll be okay. The bathrooms are through that door and to the right a little. And if you would be kind enough to make sure that your cell phones and pages and anything else like that that dings, bangs and whistles, would you turn it to silent mode? That would be lovely. And this evening, we have a program of the projected image number 7, judged by John Hart, and Francesca is going to introduce John shortly. And we also have some notices, one of which is from Mr. Suckling. So he's going to come up for just a few minutes.
Sunday is the first Sunday of the month, and I talked a few nights ago about having a walkabout. So 9:30 in front of the Surf Life Saving Club in Sumner will be the start. I have already planned a half-hour first session, which will be easy. Subject matter is easy. And then we're going to have an hour on a harder subject, and followed by coffee and lies about how good we were. So that's 9:30, Sumner in front on the seaside of the Surf Life Saving there. I'm not going to take my camera and I'll walk around, and it's not a competition leading to a competition. The purpose is to try and improve our photography. So I'm going to be available for anyone to tap me on the shoulder and say, what do you think of this, or I'm stuck, or whatever, and I'm happy to help out.
Thank you. Okay, just another check if there is any other notices that people would like to bring forward. Okay, so PI8 closes tonight, if you didn't catch that. And also, I understand that the Laurie Thomas is closing on the 8th. Is that correct? So, please get your entries in, because it's an exciting competition. And I'll just check and make sure there's nothing else I'm supposed to remember. Apparently I'm good to go. So I'll get Francesca to introduce John Hart. And Francesca is like triple hatting as well, because she is also doing the reading this evening.
Hi everyone. Cool having 2 in a row, isn't it? Sorry, I can't see you very well. I've got my reading glasses on. Our judge tonight is John Hart from Dunedin. John is a renowned New Zealand photographer with many, many major national and international awards, and many of them several times over. John joined the Dunedin Photographic Society in 1959 and is now its second longest serving member. In the past, John has been very active in the New Zealand photographic community, PSNZ, and also the National Exhibition. Recently, John retired from competitive exhibiting and has become involved with judging, mentoring, and community projects. John documented the development of the Forsyth Bar Stadium and is currently documenting, that's gone missing, I think it's climate change. John says his best reward from photography is learning to see and meeting great people along the way. And his note about this competition is that he hopes that he's been helpful to both the beginners and the advanced workers. I found the top-ranked work really absorbing. You might like to leave it on the screen for a wee while to allow members time to navigate their own ways through it. So that's an interesting thought. And on that, I will go to my other job. Majestic. You have recognised that the low side lighting has potential, but you will need to avoid burning out the snowy high tones which distract. Look for more textured centres of interest. With a telephoto lens and tramping boots, the distant rocks left of the centre look interesting. Poop deck. The reasonably well captured walking plank is not helped by the rather distracting background. Inclusion of the offending birds would be more relevant. Iridescent dive. The kingfisher's plumage needs to be more sharply rendered to help reduce the dominance of the other components, particularly the perching pole. Hot ring. It needs to be more sharp and oh no, hang on a minute, there's something wrong here. There needs to be more sharpness and information about the subject for this work to be really meaningful. People on the beach. Unfortunately, this image has no centre of interest or idea to indicate where the picture was taken, and the secondary items are too small to show any detail. Even identification of the location may have helped to indicate why the picture was taken. Blackbird. Your bird appears to be well focused, but it is far too dark. You need a stronger light source. Tunnel vision. This subject matter has potential, but you need settings and equipment which will give you a greater depth of field. Bumblebee gathering nectar. Exposure is good, but depth of field is extremely narrow beyond the eye of the bee. Use of a small aperture, fast speed, and tripod can all contribute to getting sharp focus of the key parts of your subject. Early morning row. This image has potential with some changes. At present, there seems so much excess pastel blue space. One solution is to add a hint of mist to enhance the mood. The other pathway is to crop out a middle third panel and present it in a vertical format. Then add some contrast to extend your tonal range that could give you a final image which is still minimalistic, but with much more energy. Listen up. I presume you're photographing an aerial instructor and student. Good start. But could you have found a different angle of view which would have allowed you to see the student's face and at the same time reduce the large amount of sky? Another approach is to crop off some of the top edge of the excess sky so as to put more emphasis on the close interaction between the two. Logistics aside, that kind of approach is a good way to add value to your work. Step back in time. The subject matter has potential and I liked your title. However, the left side of the steps is messy, while the far left and the far top edges would benefit from some cropping and tidy up. The figure at the doorway works well. New Zealand falcon. The eye has been quite interestingly portrayed, but wider depth of field is required to cover the whole bird as well as the stump. Capturing some behaviour would be preferable to this very static pose. Older love. I like your idea, but the back view of the couple needs a less cluttered background. An alternative frontal view would add more storytelling. Lakeside autumn morning. This looked best as a thumbnail when the central backlit willow made a strong accent against the shadow. Enlarged, that strength is diluted due to some softness and focus being shown up by zooming in. A stronger centre of interest would have helped. Artistic ball. The posterisation and unusual components arouse interest, but we really need to see more of the ball's head. Knees up. You have captured quite well the action involving the ball in the right-hand half of the image, but you have less control over the rest of this wide-angle view. The high contrast lighting is very difficult to work with. Zoom shots at rodeos can give you more interesting, intimate compositions along with differential soft focus in the background. Feast for the Hungry Ghost. You will be pleased you captured this highlight of the event. However, in this competition, I would like you to be a little more interactive, such as including a closer view of the spectators we see on the left participating in this particular context. That adds value in a photojournalism context. Desolate. Although I feel you have captured the mood, you do not seem to have nailed a satisfying composition and centre of interest. Maybe they could have been seen by walking forward to the broken foam at the centre of your picture and then turning your camera a little towards the right. Another idea is to inspect the driftwood on the left to see what interesting foreground material could have been included in a different composition. Bay of Fires. On each side I see potential, but your wide-angle approach has left you with a large area of little detail in the middle, unless post-exposure burning in can make a difference. My personal preference would be to zoom in on the left-hand third of your image, but leaving out the bottom small rock. The apex of the upper rock makes a great accent above the red lichen. Old Pack Horse Bridge at Carbridge. This is a picturesque scene, but it lacks compositional management, giving the viewer a sense of direction as to what you consider to be the centre of interest. If it is to be the bridge archway, you could have positioned yourself lower so that its highest point is raised above the distant trees and placed against the photogenic cloud. After that, work how much of the foreground you'd want to use. Coming through. I really liked your study of the buoy boat and the colourful building behind. However, the high tone items in the background were distracting in pictorial terms. On the other hand, if the material in the right-hand third related to storm damage, that information could have been included in the title. In turn, it would add value to your work. Alley disposal. This work was fresh and imaginative. It incorporated elements of controlled posterisation, architectural design, photojournalism, and an underlying jigsaw theme. My only concern is that the bottom half seems much heavier than the top. To readjust balances, I would suggest a slim crop off the top, just above the horizontal scaffold pole. Track construction to Everest. Although there appeared to be some over-sharpening in places, the title naming this iconic location, storytelling and a good composition all added value to this photojournalistic effort. Kaimoana morning. I really appreciated the artistry of your captures of alpine recession under the soft, moody light. However, an enhancement would be to remove the distracting gap in the trees at the far right and some of the excess sky at the top. The Titan composition would result from such cropping would further strengthen the overall balance and weight of your recessional theme. Reflection. This image had immediate impact with the reflections and the array of colour. However, during repeated viewings, the impact diminished. I became mindful of the progressive loss of sharpness moving from left to right. Having your focal point positioned more to the upper centre than to the upper left and using a smaller aperture would have allowed a wider depth of field and reduced intensity in the highest tones. Morning light. You have a nice capture of light and shade while the falling snow in the background is interesting. However, at present, your base looks rather cut off and distracts. Consider cropping off the trees, road and the car. Kaikoura coastline. This is a good example of how the effects of contrasty light can be mitigated by use of an HDR filter. It gives us so much more detail to explore with ease. However, I would recommend you consider reducing some of the higher tone areas hugging the right-hand edge with modest burning in. A slim crop could also do the trick. Snow and surf. I thought the parallels between the surf and the snowy peaks were well worth drawing attention to in your title. The surfer is well placed by the structure on the top of the dune, but the structure on top of the dune is distracting. You could consider toning down its right highlight or cropping off its mast in the sky above the peaks. The mob. This farming seems to convey solidarity in the landscape, routine in farming practices, and even sheep expectations of what is required of them. The only jarring note is the high-tone pasture in the top right corner. This distracts, and I would suggest you crop vertically on the right-hand edge and on the bottom border where you have excess road. Following those corrections, your study should have more vitality, intimacy, and easier to read information. Downtown Christchurch 2040. With your low light exposure, you have created quite a spooky introduction for any viewer. However, I feel the study of the mannequins is an unfinished work with more compositions and themes to be explored. For example, the upper third seems underutilised, and maybe a horizontal format may have provided new space at left and bottom for new creative ideas. Lake Huron in winter. I gave credit for capturing such a beautiful lighting in this seasonal moment. Just a pity you did not have time to find a less scrappy foreground. Maybe the fence line had potential as a lead-in or as a foreground prop. Moody Mitre Peak. This image had unrealised enhancement potential. The filtered sunlight in the central area is good, but I felt that some slight darkening of the right-hand edge and corner would help contain the centre strength and mood. Some subtle enhancement of the cloud modelling on the left could have a similar effect. Rose's dance. Poise, statuesque and confidence, the dancer is well captured with the use of a continuous, tightly controlled tonal range. It would be interesting to know the contents of the performance. A gloomy evening. You have captured the misty mood very well, and the diffused headlights make a great accent. You were wise to expose at this particular moment so as to keep the bottom right quadrant free from the shaft of light to enter and maintain the feeling of movement. Sunrise at the pier number 3. The New Brighton pier keeps on giving. Nevertheless, no two versions will ever be the same. Initially, I wondered whether this version might be too heavy on the left. However, it is amazing how those two little birds in the bottom right quadrant do contribute to the fulcrum so as to maintain balance. Well seen. The Settlers, Ballarat. I really like the soft lighting, muted colours and gentle storytelling which all combined harmoniously. But were the early settlers mannequins or live models? Was the photographer photographing someone else's art, or does the image reflect their own take on the scene? Well done. Biding its time. The diagonals in your composition and good choice of settings have maintained a good sense of movement. I liked your title as it offers a subplot to the viewer, perhaps explaining why we are not seeing more faces. Dancer in flight. The photographer made the capture at the right moment and with the appropriate settings so as to contrast the strength and athleticism of the limbs with the flimsy airborne fabric. The background is complementary without distractions. Waiting. Despite some reservations, this is an image with a difference carrying elements of minimalism, monochrome, a very short tonal scale, and an enigmatic cat who simply will not go away. The overall effect can be attributed to flat light and factors relating to exposure and focus. And there is texture lurking in the grasses, house cladding and hills. And the cat seems to know that the sun is just about to break through and transform the landscape. Flow. As well as a successful portrayal of water in motion, the use of a limited palette offers a unifying function. Also, the variations in the rocks along with some imagination can quickly spawn fish. I was once a keen angler until I joined the Dunedin Photographic Society and to my horror discovered that The morning and evening rise times were also the best times to be out with the camera rather than a fly rod. Hockey player. This work has both strengths and some issues. Contributing to the sense of action are the well-caught low body posture, the stick's ball contact, and the forward thrusted ponytail. However, the number of horizontals included tend to have a subduing effect, and also the absence of contextual components such as spectators or other players tend to mute the drama. Nevertheless, the shot has much to recommend it. Potholes in the rain. Another moody capture. I particularly like your placement of the puddles and the backlit tussocks in the top left quadrant. You may have left the dark tree in the top right corner to help balance the sides, but without it the composition is less static. It allows the eye to travel more easily to the background corner, link with the tussock and complete the circular journey back to the nearest puddle. Both versions are acceptable. Southern giant petrel. The photographer has shown considerable skill to portray the plumage with both feathery softness and sharp detail. The fluidity of the water makes a nice contrast. The only giant stormy petrel I have in my collection was in flight on the southern Argentina coast. Tunnel vision. This is an immaculate work illustrating human interaction with architecture. There is an excellent use of tonal range, while the vertical format and composition work so well with the dynamic tunnel design. Takapu at Muriwai. This minimalistic head study of the gannet has required considerable work and skill to reach this end result. Exposure has had to be subtly lengthened where required, yet still retaining some fine texture. The eye area is a delight to view with its heavier tone detail. The lightly mottled sky provides an ideal backdrop. Best in show, noticing. When viewing photographs, I often ask what the photographer is trying to tell or show me. Often it is a straightforward sharing of an event, memory, or experience worthy of recording. Occasionally, underlying messages are being conveyed, which invite various levels of emotional or intellectual response from the viewer. This may in turn involve rhetoric questioning and uncovered complexities, either perceived or real. The title of Noticing is both ambiguous and intriguing, in embracing people, mannequins, electronic devices, architecture, and the passing of time. I also have noticed, but I shall leave each of you to embark on your own voyage of discovery. I am rewarding this work for its conceptualization, execution, and the potential to encourage repeated viewings. We had some great pictures. Wait. Are we going to ask Diana to come up and award the certificates? I noticed John mentioned titles quite a lot in his critiques. It was just something to think about. Oh, sorry, Diana, I'll just get my glasses. Okay, here we go. Galley Disposal, Joe Curtis. Track Construction to Everest, Alistair Phillips. Kaimanama Morning, Peter Curtis. Reflection, Ann Yan. Morning Light, Diana Andrews. I'll pop that here for you. I'll pop it there for you. Okay. Kaikoura Coastline, John Thornton. Snow and Surf, David Rice. The Mob, Richard Cooper. I just want to have a look at this one's mine, Downtown Christchurch 2040. I just want to see what it looks like on the big screen. Thank you. Lake Huron in winter, Nelson Bullstate. Moody Mitre Peak, John McCall. Rose's Dance, Anna Stevens. A Gloomy Evening, Hannah Rice. Sunrise at the Pier, Alan Moore. The Settlers, Ballarat, Valerie Dench.
They were alive. It's a clone village at Ballarat.
Biding His Time, Les Armand. Dancer in Flight, Jane Barnes. Yeah. Waiting, Ginny Money. Flo, Penny Kennedy. Hockey player, Lucy Ferguson. Potholes After the Rain, Dennis Chang. Southern Giant Petrol, Ian Harrison. Tunnel Vision, Nola Summer. Takapu at Muawai, Dawn Kirk. That's beautiful. Noticing Raywin Wright, Best in Show. Okay. And that's PI7. Some great pictures there. And get your pictures in tonight.
We're back. Thank you very much, Francesca. Okay, so there's just a few wee things to go through before we close up this evening. I have, because Diana is amazing, and I've got a little list here. On the 17th of September is the showcase, John Suckling Noticing. On the 24th of September, is due in the Natural History Projected Images. And we've heard about projected image number 8 due in tonight. The open prints are due on the 10th of September, so that's next week. And MDC for at the end of October is oil. And that's all that's on this list, but I know that Ian has got a little item to talk to as well.
Thanks, Karen. A couple of things. Firstly, if those are your prints, please take them home. We don't want an accumulation of prints in the box. So, yeah, that's a reminder. I just want to elaborate a little bit on next week, which is an activity session based around processing. So what we're going to do, and it's still coming together a little bit, but it's going to be a session of 3 or potentially 4 20 minutes to half an hour talks by various club members on either Photoshop or Lightroom production. We're going to start with a couple of sessions on Lightroom and then probably 2 on Photoshop. And it's going to be kind of components of it, and it'll be lots of interactive Q&A kind of all the way through it. And at the conclusion of that, just depending on how our time works out and whether we have 3 or 4, we'll have a situation where we'll have a few people with laptops here, so you're invited to bring along a couple of images on a stick if you want to kind of get somebody to help you talk through and do some processing. So interactive processing activity night is next week. Thank you.
Thank you. That was great, because that was the next thing on the list to talk to. So, just a last little thank you to Andrew, Tim, who's had to leave already, Alan, Alistair was there too. Thank you very much, Francesca. Thank you very much to Jane for the earlier session. And I think it was Dennis that opened, I'm not sure. No, it wasn't. Apologies. Probably Alistair. Yes, thank you, Alistair. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Diana. Much appreciated. Have a lovely evening, everyone, and we'll see you next week.